We are back. Bay Area Baseball, past, present, and future. Your host, Tim Haller. How are you, Tim?
I'm doing well, Ralph. How are you this evening?
Yeah, really good. We've got a very special guest, someone who I've been kind of keeping track of, being a giant apologist for all these many years. And I have a special interest because someday I want to go to fantasy camp. He's Bill Laskey. How are you?
How are you? I'm doing good, gentlemen. How are you guys doing tonight?
Oh, really well. So much I want to talk to you about, but I want Tim to talk about the things that connect you guys. And Tim, take it away.
Well, I just want to be perfectly clear in that I'm totally grateful that Bill is on our show this evening. That's one. And Bill and I have a history. We go back to the early 1980s when he pitched with the Giants. And that's how we initiated our acquaintance. Of course, it's our relationship has, I'd like to think that it's evolved over the years. We've gotten a little more mature. And Bill is just a very special person in my life. He's a very special person in the Haller family, our lives. And it's an honor to have you with us, Bill.
Well, it's great. Thank you so much, Timmy. I really appreciate that. And, you know, I first got to meet Timmy through his dad. Of course, Tom was the general manager when I got traded over here from the Kansas City Royals, and I got to meet Timmy through my roommate, Tom O'Malley. Tom O'Malley hung out with Timmy and Gary Davenport and a couple other, Rob Deere and a couple other guys we played with. And Timmy was a little younger than I was, but Tom was right in that same age group. And I got to know them all and hung around with them, and we did a lot of things together. And got to know Timmy after the game of baseball, like he said, through his mom and dad. And it was special. He's got a special family, and I'll never forget them. And at the same time, we just saw each other at Jim Davenport's funeral, where both myself and Timmy grew up with the Davenports, and such a great man we lost, but at the same time, it was great to see Timmy, and at the same time, baseball brings a lot of families together, baseball brings a lot of people together, and it's all about the game of baseball that makes long-lasting friendships, and the Haller family, as well as myself and Timmy, will always have that.
Wow, how nice. It's nice to have you both on the air at the same time for just that very reason. Can we get back a little, Bill, to get to know you? You started in the Kansas City organization. Were you drafted out of college or out of high school?
Yeah, I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, and I went to a junior college back then. You know, they wanted to redshirt everybody if you went to a four-year school. They always thought freshmen couldn't pitch, and I was that competitive pitcher. I wanted to pitch. It didn't matter who was up there. I didn't care what batter it was. I didn't have a fear of anyone. And that back then in the 70s here, not too many people went to a junior college. And I went to a junior college, took a couple of my buddies from Toledo, opposing teams, and we went up to Monroe Community College, and we competed. And I got to pitch, and that's what I wanted to do, and it worked out extremely well for me. I went 2 years at junior college there, and then I went on to Kent State University. I was drafted both years in junior college by the Tigers, but I didn't go. I didn't sign. I kept going to school, and then I went to Kent State, and I got drafted by the Kansas City Royals. I ended up playing in the Cape Cod Baseball League the summer before Kent
Bill,
State.
Can I interrupt
really
1 second and just
go right ahead.
Just ask you about Kent State, because I'm an old, I'm 69, and I'm an old hippie. And
I wasn't there when they had the massive shooting or anything like that. But there was a lot of history.
I understand, and I certainly wasn't holding you responsible in any way. I know you have a good alibi. But my point was, did the campus, when you went there, was there a pall over things? Were there ceremonies?
Yeah, they were still trying to build a gym, and the whole thing was, of course, they were trying to build this gym, and there was a lot of protesters, and of course, May 4th, the date when everything went down there, and we still saw a lot of massive protests at the school back in that, and that was in the mid 70s. So there was still a lot of police, student activities, and it was a wide open thing. There was a history that was brought back, and I got to understand what it was all about and things like that. And it was a good educational part. But at the same time, the university was a very strong university and a very good, educational school, and it still is. But at the same time, going into a 4-year school as a JC transfer was tough because you had to break kind of the code of the juniors and seniors that were there trying to lead this team on. And it was rough for the first month or so, but once I got my feet wet and got my pitching going, I took over and had a real good year, and that's when the Kansas City Royals drafted me.
And who was the scout that approached you initially?
Jerry Stevens was his name. I'll never forget
Jerry
him.
Stevens, okay.
Jerry Stevens was his name. I don't know if he's still in the game of baseball or not. Traveled that Midwest region. Followed me every game at Kent State. It was unbelievable how many scouts. Back in the 70s, you didn't have that central scouting bureau. You had individuals that latched onto one guy and they followed you, and he was at every game. And back then they had the radar guns, but the old ones, and they were gunning and doing all the other things they had to do. And at certain times during that season when we played tougher division teams, I had 20 to 25 scouts watching, which was, at one time, it was a nervous type thing, but at the same time, it was like, I stopped worrying about who was in the stands.
You communicate so well. Did you major in communications at Kent State or
business management? Matter of fact, business management and communications, of course. I think Timmy can tell you, both he and I can talk your ear off when we want to. And at the same time, I think it's just...
I can attest to Timmy talking one's ear off, that's for sure.
Oh, Timmy's fantastic. I love listening. I love talking baseball.
Me too. I love it.
Bill has a doctorate in communications.
Does he really?
There you go.
Oh, okay.
I'm being facetious. I'm being very facetious.
Yeah, you know what it really is? It's really just communicating. It's really, talking life stories. It's really talking baseball stories, things that you watch, things that you you believed in and you trusted, and it all came out to a great career. And it was no Hall of Fame great career, but at the same time, 6 years in the big leagues, and I played 13 overall. And walked away with no
great career.
How
many little leaguers? Any kid that wants to put on a baseball glove as a kid would dream about a major league career, a minor league career. Sure. What was your first day in the minors like? I'm fascinated.
I tell you, when I went to rookie ball, and you signed in June, and you ended up going to rookie ball, and of course, rookie ball, you had 30 pitchers trying to make a 10-man staff. And you had people from all over the world. And what was funny about it was, I was back then when you got drafted, and Timmy may remember this, there was a secondary phase for guys that were drafted that didn't sign. So I was one of those. I was second picked by the Royals, which was pretty high at that time. So when I went to rookie ball, everybody wanted to know who our top 3 guys were. And you guys will all remember them. The first one you may not. Bill Swiacki was his name. He threw 105 miles an hour out of high school, never had a clue where it was going. But when he pitched, everybody watched because he was like 6'5", 240, and he just threw the hell out of the ball, but he never made it past A-ball. The next guy was Darryl Motley, who did very well with the Kansas City Royals, came up as an outfielder. And the first guy that was picked was Buddy Biancalana, shortstop, real rangy kind of guy. Couldn't hit, and we were all wondering, what do you make? And back then, $40,000, $50,000 and was a lot of money, and it was it was true test of the Kansas City Royals because they were a very strong organization. When you looked at their big league team, you looked at their starting staff: Dennis Leonard, Larry Gurrow, Paul Splittorff. Top three guys. And
right.
They did very well in the 80s, and won the World Series with Willie Wilson, George Brett, Frank White, UL Washington. A good group of players, and once I got to AAA and I had a real good year, I didn't have an agent, and over that winter I did very well, didn't get called up, and Don Hood was one of my roommates, ex-big leaguer, and he said, why don't you get an agent? And I'm like, what's an agent going to do for me? And he goes, it gets you traded. Sure enough, I picked up the Hendricks brothers, and that winter I got traded with Rich Gale for Jerry Martin, and that opened the door for me to get to the big leagues with the San Francisco Giants.
Jerry Martin was a good hitter, platoon outfielder.
Yeah, Rich Gale was one of those kind of guys that 6'7", 6'8", had good stuff. One of the slowest guys on the mound. It seemed like 20 minutes every inning, but he was.
They used to call those guys
flexible.
plotters, right?
Yeah, exactly. But he was a good pitcher. He ended up being a pitching coach for the Red Sox for many years, and I don't know what he's doing now, but a very, very astute baseball coach, and he understood the game, and he was always trying to teach young guys different things. Very educational.
Hey, do you remember your $5 Topps check? I ask everybody this.
I did. I still do, and I still remember that, and the greatest thrill, of course, and Timmy will tell you this too, is when you see your first baseball card. And
right. I was the Topps rep. I was the Topps
Were you
rep.
really?
I gave out $5 checks in the 80s and 90s. I missed you.
Yeah, sure.
And I worked for Cyberger.
I'm sure you saw a lot of wide open eyes of players when they got that check, and Topps was the key.
I have been waiting to tell this story. Tim doesn't know it. He's never heard it before. I was the Topps rep the year Robbie Thompson signed. He was in Fresno. Wendell Kim was his manager.
Wow.
And he was the only, it was high A, so he was the only person I was there to see that day with the Topps check. And it's a standard contract that you sign, and I would say something like, Robbie, my name is Ralph Tyko. I'm here to offer you a contract with Topps. We're going to give you $5 now. They called it stake money. And if you make the major leagues, when and if you make the major leagues, you make big bucks, because in those days, in the 80s, players would make an extra $85,000 a year just to have their name, picture on a baseball card. Big bucks.
Right.
And he looks at me, and he's right out of, first year, basically. Little skinny guy, my size. He looks at me, and I've been doing it a long time by that time. Talked to a lot of players. Nobody reacted to my speech like this. He says, if and when, no if, I'm going to make the major leagues.
Wow.
And
very good.
He looked at me, and he just kind of like shrugged me like if, and and I said, I know. There's no, and I taught him at that time. We got kind of made up with him a little bit, and I taught him that there was a Hank Thompson and a Bobby Thompson, but Bobby Thompson didn't have a P in his name. Hank Thompson did, blah, 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 from when I was a kid and following the New York Giants. We became close that day, but I'll never forget that attitude. And I wasn't at all surprised when a year or two later he was playing in the bigs.
Yeah. He was up there in 1986, I do believe he made it, didn't he, or 87, one of the 2 years?
I think it might have been 86. And I wanted to ask you, Mr. Laskey, that you pitched with the Giants and missed that 87 year. You were hurt that year?
Yes, I did. No, okay. I tell you a quick story with that. In 86, I got traded back here. I was with Montreal, and I got traded back here, and Roger Craig was the new manager. and he wanted every pitcher to throw a split-finger fastball, and I threw 3/4, and I just could not even try to throw it. Every time I threw it, it pinched my shoulder. And he ended up almost August and September of '86. He sent me to AAA saying, "Well, you got to go to AAA and learn this pitch now." I couldn't throw it. I was going to blow out my shoulder. I ended up going down August and September, and Jim Lefevre was the head coach down there. When I got down, and Jim said, "Bill, you're an established big leaguer. Why do you need to throw this pitch?" And I said, "Well, that's what Roger wanted." And I went down there and I tried to throw it and ended up almost hurting my shoulder, and I just said I couldn't do it. So after '86, I took free agency and went over to Detroit, '87, and I was in Cleveland in '88, did the old smorgasbord after that, but never really caught on to be in the big leagues for, I was with Cleveland one year, and then you start bouncing around because I was in my low 30s, and back in the 80s, if you were in your 30s and you weren't in the big leagues, you were considered old. And the next thing you know, I was bouncing around AAA for a couple of years.
Wow. Did you pitch at Yankee Stadium when you pitched for Cleveland?
No, I went to Yankee Stadium. I didn't get to pitch there, though. I had Toronto and New York were the two stadiums I didn't get to pitch at, but I got to pitch at Fenway and a lot of the other American League. And I played in Cleveland in '88 with the old 90,000, the old stadium there, and that was when they did the movie Major League with the Cleveland Indians, and
it was it was a great movie. It was,
and you know what they
terrific.
did? It was a Saturday, and they had, if anybody wore a Cleveland Indians shirt, hat, or whatever, they tried to fill that stadium because they were trying to film it. And we all went down to the bullpen. They brought a helicopter down on pitcher's mound, and they kept doing 360s to film all the people in the stands. That's how that all came about. And we were in first place at that time. And the Yankees, in front of 90,000 people, whooped us like 15-2 that day. And we were all saying, "Well, we won't see these crowds back." But it was amazing how they
for
did
the movie.
It was pretty. Yeah, it was. So one day we had everybody in Cleveland there, and we lost.
Right. Very, very authentic movie. I mean, just uniforms.
Yeah.
What did you enjoy about playing in the minors? You have any stories about coming up in the kid? First of all, was Sid Thrift still in the organization when you from the baseball academy?
No, I know the name. I know the name, and I know the gentleman, but no, he wasn't around when I was there. The Kansas City Royals, when I was there, was John Scherholz. He was the general manager, and Dick Balderson was the minor league correspondent. Both those guys ended up, John Scherholz with the Braves, one of the top executives in Major League Baseball. I ran into him.
Future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, when I was with the Giants, I ran into him, and it was so great because I looked at him, he looked at me, because he was one of those guys that said, "Oh, you'll never make it. You're too long and lanky," And it was after my first 2 years, and I won 13 games both years for the Giants. And he saw me my third year, and he looked at me, and he goes, "You proved me wrong." And I said, "I proved a lot of people wrong, John." And it was just a good one-on-one. And I saw him after the game of baseball, and a very good man. He remembers, and that's what's great about some GMs. They remember a lot of things they say to you, and sometimes they do it to see if they can motivate you. And Tom Haller was another one, Timmy's dad. Tom Haller used to come down. He was a major league catcher. He'd come down there and ask you why you threw certain pitches and why didn't you try this or why did you try that? And he'd grab Bob Brenly and myself and bring us in the corner and say, "Well, what was your strategy on this hitter?" And, that's what's great about Tom. Tom was an ex-player, and we always said, ex-players, ex-catchers or pitchers were good managers or good coaches because they were in the trenches that many years. And Tom was a fantastic catcher for many years. So it was good to get knowledge out of people like that. And, nowadays that's what I'm doing for kids, giving them knowledge of the pitching and knowledge of the game mentally. And I think that you need to do that.
Fill us in a little bit about what you do and how you can be reached through the Giants.
Well, there's a few things I do. I do a lot of things with the Giants. I'm kind of an ambassador for them. I do a lot of private corporate events. I do public speaking with them, and On the other side, I do radio, TV. I do radio on KNBR on weekends. Vida Blue and myself have a little talk show we do once. It's like a 3-hour show every weekend. Once the season begins, we start up in April. And then I'm on Comcast. I've been doing Comcast pre- and post-game as an analyst. This is our 5th year. And, of course, my buddy Vida Blue is my partner. And it's been fun. It's something totally different and analyzing games good and bad. And those are the fun things. And then, of course, like what you said earlier, I run the San Francisco Giants Fantasy Camp, which is a camp for elderly people, older people, over 30 years old that want to play baseball for a week. I've been doing that for 11 years now. Sell out every year. It's been sold out for the last 7 years. And, of course, winning the World Series, it helps, 3 years. But I bring past alumni guys in, Mike McCormick, Hobie Landreth. We got a bunch of guys from Jim Gott, Joel Youngblood, Scott Greltz, Mark Davis. I go on and on and on. There's a bunch of guys, Richard Rillia, Sean Estes. Kind of do different eras. That's what I try to do. And it's been great. We do it a week in January, and my website or my email address is sffantasycamp@yahoo.com. You can also Google that, and it comes up for the many camps. And there's a lot of pictures and videos from a lot of people that have done it, and they've gone on YouTube. And it's just been a fun week. And Timmy's going to come down. I have the Tom Haller division on one, and I have the Bobby Bonds division in the other. So we use Tom's name, and we're going to probably do something now for Jimmy Davenport. I may call the Gold Glove Award the Jimmy Davenport Award. He won the Gold Glove at third base, and it's just special to me for those people that I remember when I was coming up. These guys were the middle-aged guys that gave me the education of the game, and continue to have some great friendships with them. And of course, Timmy and I have been friends, and we do the same when we talk baseball. It's the same kind of thing. What went right, what went wrong, and did the Giants pick up the right people? Who did they like? Who did they not like? And, that's what's great about talking baseball. Everybody's got their opinion. If it's right or wrong, they'll give it to you.
Well, let me give you one. The Giants have a catcher coming up, Brown. Was it Andrew Brown?
No, it's Trevor Brown.
Trevor Brown. Oh,
yep.
Wow. He's very versatile.
I brought him into fantasy camp as one of the active players to meet some of the campers. And what a great guy. Just yes, sir, no, sir. Very nice guy. Very just
heard him on Marty Lurie today, did an extended interview with him. And Marty Lurie is absolutely my hero, one of my heroes in the world. He's terrific. And this kid talks as if he's 35 years old. He has plans. He had a whole off-season itinerary that he went down, what he wants to do, how he wants to improve. This kid looks good. I think it takes a smart player to be a good player. Instincts and talent, I think that it's very evenly distributed around baseball, but brains aren't, and I think really helps to have a good head on your shoulders. And this kid
does.
So.
And I think, and maybe Timmy can pop in here. I think what the Giants do in their scouting reports, and I think they really get to kind of know the player before they really judge to see if he's going to be a top-round pick or not. And some of the guys they picked up, and, of course, Andrew Susak from the Sacramento area was the key backup player, but his injuries are lingering. His thumb injury is still lingering, his wrist now. And I think Bochy's more or less saying, hey, you start and get well, and I'll pick Trevor Brown up. A lot of the pitchers have talked great about him, to how he receives the game, and he's hitting over 325 in spring training. So I think he's going to be your backup. And this was the thing that I would have loved to see the Giants do, and I'm sure money aspects had a lot to do with it, was to go pick up Luke Croy from the Brewers and have Luke Croy as your backup, and you'd possibly have Posey play first base now. Now they're talking about Brandon Belt with an extension of 3 to 4, maybe 5-year contract. So that's kind of telling you that Posey's not going to be playing first base much. So those are the kind of details
I thought Posey would have been destined for third at one time or another. And
yeah, they were talking about that, but that's a tough change.
I thought it would be.
He played it in college, of course.
Right. Well, I think first could be a tough transition too.
Boy, I talk about third base. Did Matt Duffy fall right into that spot very well? Boy, did he come along well.
And is that infield ever good defensively?
Whew, he made a spectacular play today on Samardzija against the Cubs, where he went to his left, dove, one hop, picked up, fired to first base. And, his instincts as a middle infielder will carry over at third base. And now that he knows he's going to be playing third base regularly, he can relax now and just learn the position a little bit more, as well as his offense. He had a home run again today. So good things are happening for that infield,
Yeah, and the outfield looks good. Pence has really had a nice spring. Pagan looks terrific, strong, injury-free.
I'm glad Pagan has accepted left field. That was my big question on that. Was he going to be a jerk? Was he going to be a guy that's not going to want to play left field? And he has taken it.
Was he going to be Coco Crisp?
Could be, and you know what? I'm so glad he's taken the high road and accepted it. This is his last year of his contract, and I think he needs to play a corner outfield position. His numbers in center field, his defensive numbers were terrible, and now that he's moved over to the left, he got Spahn in center, and I think all of us know how good of an outfielder he is, and his speed and his instincts, and it's going to be fun to watch. We just need to see this team stay healthy, get the pitching rolling, and that bullpen is just going to be just as good as every year.
Wonderful. Hey, what's Vida like to work with?
Vida's been my friend for over 25 years, so he and I click so well, and we play off each other very well, and a good-hearted man. Just an educated guy, and he knows the game of baseball, but he likes to challenge you by saying, hey, you know the game? Have you ever played the game? Because we get callers sometimes that try to say, hey, I remember when I used to pitch, and then Vida would say, when did you pitch, in high school? Kind of things like that, because, as you know, callers love to have the knowledge, but some of them don't have the background. And he calls them right out. But at the same time, I've been working with him for over 5 years, but like I said, my friendship with him is over 20.
He's got a smile on his face, a smile in his voice. Even when he's calling somebody out like that, it's in good fun.
And he's a southern man with charm.
Right. And what I like, he doesn't seem to be embittered by the early Charlie Finley Oakland A experience where Finley says, go get a job, be a plumber, or this, that, and the other thing, to a 20-year-old kid who won 20 games for you, and he's golden. That's how.
He tells that
was
story
his experience,
when he signed,
and he came away with a good tune.
Yeah. Well, when he signed with the Oakland A's, he wanted to play football. He was a quarterback, and he wanted to play football. And when they came down to Louisiana and signed him, and he told his mom and dad, I want to play football. And his mom says, you're going to go play baseball. And then he went to the minor leagues, was struggling, and he called his mom, said, Mom, I want to quit playing baseball. And his mom said, real quick, he said, son, you're going to stick it out, and you're going to be one of the best pitchers Oakland A's ever had. And you're not going to come home and quit. You're going to stick it out, and you're going to bust your tail. And he said, my mom said that, and the next day I went out there and everything started rolling my way. He says it was just one of those things my mom and I had, and, we all have those parents. Sooner or later they say something that sticks, and sure enough, it sticks, and the next thing you know, you got motivation more than you ever thought.
Boy, that reminds me of the Mickey Mantle saga when he went down to Kansas City, the farm team, and his father came and had basically that same conversation. I'm not taking you home. You're not a quitter.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
And it happens that way. You start, you're in your 20s, and you're watching everybody get moved around and you're struggling and you can't get people out. And, it's just the trials and tribulations of any job where you're just like, why isn't this clicking for me? I'm trying my best. And sometimes you try too hard. And sometimes you just got to pull back a little bit and try to see what everything's about. And, when I was going through the minor leagues, I went from rookie ball to AA as we're going to take you up to, you're an older guy, you're out of college. And when I went to AA, it was mostly all older guys. And I fit in, but I didn't know my role. And I was kind of just thrown in there. You're a spot starter. You're a long man. You're a middle man. And, at that time it was only, the season ended in September 1. So I got done with that. I went to instructional ball. The next year started in A ball and started moving right up in the Royals organization. And it was an eye-opener, but at the same time, I pushed myself at the right time. And my goal was to play one day in the big leagues and have a 6-year career. I was very happy with it. Sure, I would have loved to have won 20 games and, been on All-Stars and done all that. But, I battled through a lot of tough pitchers and a lot of tough pitching staffs that only had 8 guys on them. They didn't have 13. So you were battling to make 8 in the big leagues, and those were tough days.
Yeah. Who did you grow up rooting for? You were from Toledo, or was it the Mud?
Yeah, I was a big Tiger fan. My guy was Al Kaline. I wanted to be a right fielder. My dad would take me to Tiger Stadium. Where do you want to sit? Right field. I wanted to sit on the edge of that overhang in right field and mimicked Al Kaline. My batting stance was Al Kaline, and I got to play with the Tigers in '87. And the first gentleman was I went to big league camp, and the first guy walked in, my mouth opened up and walked over to him and introduced myself to him. And that whole spring training, I got to sit and talk to him, and more I got to talk to him and learn about the game. And it was my childhood idol, and it was fun seeing him and meeting him. And I got a baseball I'll never forget, a couple pictures signed to me, and he was a kind man, and he was a very, very smart baseball man. And, to this day, I idolize Al Kaline.
That's terrific. What else do you remember? Was Ralph Houck managing him?
Yeah, Ralph Houck was there, Denny McLain those days, and Denny McLain, and, there were so many good players on that team. Willie Horton, Rick Stanley.
Bill Freehan.
Yes, Freehan.
Yeah, Bill Freehan. Norm Cash.
I don't know if you remember this or not, Bill, but Dad played with his last year was with Detroit in '72.
Oh,
and
I didn't know that. Yeah.
And he was Freehand's backup, and that was an exciting season because that's the divisional play had started a couple of years prior to that, and they won the Eastern Division that year. But we have some
Is that when Billy Martin was managing?
Billy Martin was managing the club. Yeah, sure.
Was he there in the early '70s?
He was. And
I remember Ralph.
They had a great team. I mean, Jim Northrup and Gates Brown and Willie Brown. Those guys could.
It was
in my junior college. Gates Brown used to follow me, and he used to ride a Harley Davidson. So when I'd be warming up, all my catcher would go, "Gates Brown here to see you, Bill." And sure enough, there's a big gator hanging on the fence watching me throw because the Tigers drafted me twice. And Gates Brown was there every time, and it was cool to see Gator. He was a big dude.
Yeah, that is very cool. You've been cool. Thank you for being here. Will you come back
anytime,
sometime?
my friend? I screwed up last Saturday. I apologize, gentlemen, but Timmy knows I'm 99.9% of the time I'm ready to go. And thank you for inviting me. And like I said, Timmy's been a good friend of mine, and I look forward to seeing him more often and talking baseball with him. And again, it was a pleasure meeting you, sir. And anytime you guys need a little talk about baseball, you know where I am.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Bill.
That really makes me feel good and you had fun, right?
I always have fun. It's always good talk. When you're not talking, you're talking baseball. Baseball is life. Baseball is I love the game of baseball. And when you're talking baseball, you should be happy. And a lot of great stories, great people I've met through the game. And it continues. It's not just ending now. The new players and all the the new antics of baseball. The game is changing, and the excitement of baseball, packed parks, and looking forward to a great Giants season forward.
Beautiful. Hey, thanks again, gentlemen. We'll pick it up next week, same time, same place. Timmy, I'm going to put that last week's episode up tomorrow. And again, this is great for me. What can I say? To everybody out there, just keep on keeping on. Life's not always easy. It's a roller coaster sometime. Try to keep an even keel and let them know that you're pretty much the same when you're up and down. So, because you are going to be up and you are going to be down, and keep steady.
Challenges of life, isn't it? The challenges everybody has.
Everybody has them, and it will never be easy. That's the thing. Well, when this happens, there was an expression. Sometimes, I guess it was a John Lennon lyric that always sticks in my head. Life is something that happens when you're waiting for rehearsal or something. That's a good brain I got there.
All right. Well, you guys have a nice night again. It was great talking to you both. And
thanks, Bill.
Take care, guys. All right.
Hey, Timmy, thank you.
You got it. Be well, everyone.
All right. We'll see you next week.